All right, this has all happened really fast. One day we had no Apex triggers for the Hellcat Pro. Then all of a sudden, Apex posted that they were live on their website. I, of course, immediately jumped online and ordered mine. While I was on the website, I figured, what the hell? Extended mag release and takedown lever? Might as well add them to cart. Now, before we get this party started, let's get through some quick disclosures. Even though I mention the Apex triggers in pretty much every pistol video that I do, I have zero association with Apex. Have I tried to get them to send me products? Yes. Unsuccessfully, might I add. Actually, they didn't even respond to my email, so here I am paying out of pocket for all of these parts. No sponsorship, no commissions on any sales made through any of the links that I post down below. No early release on any upcoming products like, I don't know, the 10mm M&P trigger, and it's okay. I'm glad to do it. I'm happy to finally have these parts in hand and installed on the Hellcat Pro. In any event, regardless of whether or not I buy this stuff out of pocket or it shows up in the mail sent to me by the marketing department itself, I'm always going to tell it like it is. All right, I want to get started with the extended mag release, and I didn't purchase this when they originally announced it. I found that the stock mag release worked just fine for me. I like its placement, I like the way it feels. Honestly, I am surprised at how well I like that mag release straight out of the box from the factory. Considering I was going to do the trigger upgrade, I figured, what the hell, I may as well do the extended mag release at the same time and just review all of these parts at once. So the question is, how do you improve a mag release that you're already happy with? Well, you wait for Apex to redesign it. No joke. This mag release is extended without being obnoxious like some of the other mag releases that are out there. Glock extended mag releases are a good example of this. All it is a long piece of plastic jutting off of the side of your gun. It's not ergonomic, it's not comfortable, it's not very well thought out. Anyways, Apex did a damn good job here. They made that mag release stick out just a little bit more than the stock one, and they completely redesigned the texture that's on it. Originally, I thought that this mag release felt really good, but holding it side by side with Apex's version, Apex is the clear winner. Between that little bit of extra length that it has and the super aggressive texture, this mag release, it's everything that you didn't realize you needed on this gun. One thing to keep in mind when extending your mag release: be aware that your holster may make contact with that mag release. This obviously is an issue, so check your fitment. I can tell you that the McKinatec Talon, I have no issues where the holster is making contact with that extended mag release. I've got nothing to worry about. If you're looking for a holster for the Hellcat Pro, or any pistol for that matter, hit the link below, use my discount code, save a few bucks. So if you're looking for a small and inexpensive upgrade for the Hellcat or the Hellcat Pro, something that's an easy installation but has a big impact on the practical use of that weapon, Apex extended mag release. Just do it. Speaking of easy installs, the extended takedown lever, that was a pretty easy install. That's one of those parts that most people probably aren't going to upgrade on their gun, and believe me, I get it. For the most part, it's not going to change the way that your gun functions, so you're not going to notice it. So a lot of you probably aren't even going to consider doing the upgrade. Now, on the one hand, yes, it is extended and it does give you a slight ledge for your thumb to sit on. I found that the forward and rear edges of that takedown lever, they're a little more sharp than I'd like to have them. I'd like to see them smoothed out just a little bit, but that's me, that's my personal preference. As far as takedown function goes, the lever that comes on the Hellcat Pro, it's smooth and lifeless and flat up against the body of the gun. Because it takes a lot of force to turn that takedown lever, it's really weird. It's almost like the stock one feels like you're actually pushing it the wrong way or doing it wrong to get it turned. The Apex takedown lever, it's got a pretty pronounced surface for you to be able to get a good grip on. You can easily turn it without questioning whether or not you're doing it correctly. There's no fighting it, it's just a smooth operation. Aside from those couple of surfaces not being as smooth as I'd like, I'd say that the extended takedown lever is a solid purchase. It's not for everybody, but I'm actually really liking it. Last, but certainly not least, the thing that we've all been waiting for, the Apex flat face trigger for the Hellcat and Hellcat Pro. The wait is finally over.
All right, so far I can definitely tell the difference between the Apex trigger and the stock trigger.
primary complaint that I had with the stock trigger was the shape of it, the feel on my finger. I would go to the range and I would throw, I don't know, 100 rounds, 150 rounds downrange, and I would seriously have a raw spot rubbed in the corner of my finger. That issue for me is 100% solved with the addition of the Apex flat face trigger. The comfort level shooting this gun has went through the friggin' roof for me. So let's do a little side-by-side of both triggers in action. The two triggers do feel very similar. When you really get into it and compare them though, there are just slight differences. The take-up on this factory trigger, it's not horrible, but it's also not the smoothest. It feels like something is rubbing against something else. I didn't notice it with mine until I installed the Apex, and then I had to double check it by borrowing a second Hellcat Pro just for comparison. We can swap over and take a look at the Apex here. So the Apex, it feels smooth and buttery all the way through till you hit the wall, just like glass. There's no resistance there, there's no friction, it's just smooth, glass-like movement. The factory trigger, on the other hand, it's really weird now that I've had the opportunity to compare it side by side with the Apex. It's almost a two-step process to get through the take-up and actually up to the wall. You get about halfway, right about there, and it feels like you've reached the wall, but you've got that little bit of extra right there. You see it? It's not a smooth press all the way through. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. I genuinely did not notice this until I switched over to the Apex trigger. Right about there. Right about there. It's a false wall right there. Not only is there a false wall, but it feels and sounds gritty. We'll switch back over to the Apex so you can take a look at that. Smooth. Quiet. It glides back and forth, just like a trigger should. The wall with both triggers, it's nice and pronounced. The reset is great. Really the main difference between the two triggers is that the action with the Apex is so much smoother. As far as trigger weight goes, on my trigger gauge, I was getting roughly a ½ pound lighter with the Apex trigger. It's a slight difference, but it's enough that you can feel it. You know, this Apex trigger is not the same as the one for the M&P. That setup, that one is such a drastic difference between the Apex flat face trigger and the stock trigger that the Smith & Wesson comes with. It's impossible to overlook how big of an upgrade that is. With the Hellcat Pro, the stock trigger is actually pretty good. The stock trigger, it's just not comfortable. It's not smooth. It feels, you know, almost gritty, like there's friction there. It doesn't feel consistent in the way that it pulls. That consistency and that smooth trigger pull, it is a major difference between stock and using the Apex. Before this, I was okay with the trigger on the Hellcat Pro. Sure, I could have muddled my way through ownership and using it. I mean, eventually I would have built some sort of callus on my finger. I would have gotten used to kind of the ergonomics of the trigger itself. I would have been fine with it. It's like they say, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Or in this case, unfeel it. That almost double take up that the factory trigger has. A feeling of almost rubbing when you operate the trigger. Straight up, just dry dogging it almost, just nothing but friction. It doesn't feel good. But the Apex is so smooth. It's exactly what you want in a pistol. Now, it may not be a night and day difference between the stock trigger the same way that it would be with your M&P, but I'm putting it on the list of absolute must-haves for the Hellcat and Hellcat Pro. It's smooth and consistent and frictionless function make it worth the upgrade. Add that to the slight decrease in trigger weight, the all-around better physical feel of the trigger. Hell, I'd say it should be the very first thing that you do when you get your Hellcat or Hellcat Pro home. Install that Apex. So look, you know I love the Apex family of products, I really do. This Hellcat Pro, it's already exponentially better than it was when it left the factory. The question is though, can it get any better? Is there anybody out there that wants to see me add the upcoming threaded barrel Apex is getting ready to release? Throw them comments down below and just let me know. Honestly, I don't personally see a reason to put a threaded barrel on the Hellcat Pro, But if there is enough interest, then you know what, when it gets released, I'll go ahead and order one and slap one on there and do a video. So that's gonna be enough for today, folks. Remember, if you are not confident in your abilities or your experience level, find yourself a competent gunsmith to do the work for you. Sometimes it's better to throw down a few bucks to have a job done by a professional than to do it yourself and have an issue later on, especially an issue of this magnitude. Okay, that's it. I'm out. I will see you guys back here real soon.